Yay, we're here. We're alive. Good morning. Oh gosh.
Off to a good start. Good morning, good afternoon. Same thing.
Yes, no, really, good afternoon. We're so glad to be here with you. Carmen Beasley, the Women's Ministry Director here at the Chapel in Green, together with
Hillary Blake,
yes,
an attendee of the Chapel in Green.
Yeah.
Betsy Off, another attendee.
And you work here
I
too,
do work
Betsy.
here, yes.
Not everyone would know that. Yeah,
That's true. Part-time, young adults, high school and middle school assistant.
You do it all. Yeah,
A little bit.
You do it all, and you're helping here with women's ministry. So, yeah, grateful to be here with you both. We're missing our fourth musketeer,
Yes.
Denise Reed. Denise, we miss you and hope to see you next week. So we're beginning a new book in Genesis, girls. This is Genesis 12 through 33, and we're so excited that you're joining us here too. Just as we get back, like today is not really a day that we're talking about the word per se. We're just warming up, sort of an intro week into what's ahead. I always like to use this particular week as a kind of get to know you a little bit. And ladies, for those of you who are on the other end, we love to get to know you too. So we'd love for you to answer some of these questions. But just starting off the bat, like this is not related to Genesis at all. It's more of, hey, it's 2020. It's a new year. Happy New Year. Let's talk about a favorite decade. Now, I know you haven't lived that many decades, Betsy.
No, I haven't.
Yes. You really haven't either, Hillary. I've lived a lot of decades so far. But it doesn't mean, what would be a favorite decade and why?
It has to be one that I've lived.
Not necessarily. I don't think so. Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Yes. Okay, I usually don't do this, but I'll go first. The 80s. Yes, the 80s.
Please explain.
The 80s. Big hair. I want to make my hair big.
You were definitely
again.
like the leotard, like tight workout girl, weren't you? Like leg warmers.
Do you have pictures of big hair?
I feel like that was you.
I don't remember ever wearing a leotard, but I did wear leg warmers and lovely. I miss the scrunchy socks.
I feel like you could still pull those off.
See, you weren't even alive then.
Scrunchy
You're
socks.
like, no, scrunchy socks.
I miss those as well.
They kind of look like leg warmers, only they were socks. So it's like, just imagine knee socks, but you scrunch them down.
Okay,
and
got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's bring back scrunchy socks, big hair. And then I will say that's when I met my husband.
Aww.
That's when I got married. There's some big things that happened in the 80s too.
That's fun.
My mom used to give me wings.
She did?
She would like tease and then spray, so I had wings.
Oh,
really? She gave you big hair. How old are we talking here?
I mean, it was 90s.
Okay.
When I was in elementary school. Something special.
Okay. She likes the 80s too,
I guess so.
Yes.
Sometimes I look back at my pictures, I'm like, oh my gosh, Mom!
Yeah.
Why the wings?
Okay, so a favorite decade.
Is it bad if I say like the 10s? The 2010s?
No.
Is that bad? I feel like I really liked. I mean, like that was like the only time I was like really like aware of what was going on. I just feel like it was like a big decade. Like I graduated high school and college, and I got a job. So I feel like it was just like big things that were happening, like a big growth. Like lots of things changed each year. I think that was like an exciting time.
I love that. I mean, isn't it amazing how much
Yeah.
can change in 10 years?
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's very weird. It's very weird and scary.
It's exciting to think about another 10 years in that way, I think.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
The 2030s.
20. Oh, wow. Okay. No. Wow. You're right. It's
I mean, I know.
I'm like, oh no, that's 20 years
Yeah.
down the road, Betsy. No, it's not. Okay,
No.
good.
10 years.
Thank you.
Mm.
Makes sense. How about for you, Hillary? What's going through that mind?
I mean, I'm just going to go with my first initial answer because I feel guilty leaving out certain years because then I'm not saying I'm not thankful for those, but my favorite, like what first comes to mind would be the 90s because I feel like it was the least stressful time in my life.
Okay.
Like my younger elementary years, just a lot of good memories. And plus I love music from the 90s.
Okay.
Does that mean
do you not like the music
No, I
from
think
the 90s?
the best music came from the 70s. You know? Yeah.
Well, I used to love the Backstreet Boys and
Okay.
Yeah. How can you beat
Yes.
them? There's no comparison.
All right, I guess we should move on.
All right.
Yes. Ladies, we would love to hear from you. Hi, Tammy. Give us your favorite decade. We'd love to hear from you. So let's talk about jumping back into the Genesis study. And I thought maybe just quickly, we've gone through the holidays, a new year. Can you think back to last year and one takeaway from Genesis 1 through 11 that maybe helps, just makes you more excited to dig into chapter 12?
I mean, sometimes I'm a little extreme, and I understand that. But last semester, I feel like all the things that I grew up thinking were kind of squashed, and I was able to see them for what, like, God says about them instead of what people says about them, what people say about it. And so for me, it was just to be less put in a box, like be more, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Just really seeking the word and what it is saying. And I just feel like I had a huge breakthrough last time.
Hey.
I like Noah now. So.
I like Noah. Team Noah now.
Yeah.
Team
I
Noah.
love hearing that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hillary.
That's really good.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about this morning, how one of the major takeaways for lots of women at the beginning of Genesis was that it was like they saw a love story in it. And I was like a part of that, but like I really saw God's love in chapter 1 through 11, which I wasn't expecting to see that, because I think it's a lot of like, it's setting up like the big conflict of sin and the people of God falling short again and again. And we see like Noah and like the flood, and we see lots of destruction and all these like big things like the Tower of Babel. But I kept seeing God's love in like unconventional ways, like seeing God's love in his discipline and in his judgment. So I feel like that's going to help with this, because I feel like we're going into like a big part of Genesis where it's going to like play into the rest of the Bible. It's just more conflict and more of God lovingly disciplining his people. So, and it's also like, I feel like sort of like with you too, like a lot of like the earlier books, the earlier chapters of Genesis, it's like the big stories, like, you know, like
Sunday school.
Yeah, big Sunday school stories. And I feel like I know, because this is like focusing on Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And like I know like their like sort of main story, like their main thing. But like all the like the little things, I feel like I forget a lot about like all of Abraham, like what was happening in like Isaac and Jacob. So I'm excited to see like the big names, but also like learning how they got to those big places, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes complete sense. I mean, they are known as the patriarchs of our faith, the fathers of our faith. So how did they get to that position? Why do we call them that? And there must be something, I don't know, distinguished or special about their lives in a way that they have this place in history and in scripture. So I love it. Yeah. And thank you for unpacking, because I shared this morning with women here I'm not so good about doing an online survey. We should maybe do that sometime, but we do survey the women here at our church. And the number one takeaway that women had was God's love. And that shocked me. Like going into Genesis 1 through 11, I would have never said, oh, ladies, we are going to learn about God's love from this book. Yeah. And then number 2 was his mercy. So, and again, that would not have been on my radar. Number 3 was God's goodness, which maybe would have been on my radar if you think about the Garden of Eden. But when you lump those 11 chapters together, the flood, Tower of Babel, no.
Yeah.
So I love how God continues to, I call it blowing up the box that I put him in, Hillary. It's kind of, I think, what you were trying to suggest too.
Yeah. Well, and I think that what's funny about that is a lot of times people talk about the Old Testament as like scary God. And the New Testament as like selfless salvation, love God. Right. So that is, I think you go into the Old Testament thinking it doesn't apply to me. It's all culture difference. It's all, you know, and it's God's anger and wrath and why he needed Jesus to come for us, you know. So that's neat, the things that you see when you don't just listen to those like little boxes of this is how this is and this is, you know.
It's good to get in and dig into the scripture ourselves to see what he has to say. So did you have something to add? I feel like I cut you off just now.
Well, I liked how you were kind of speaking towards like how I feel like a lot of times we act like God in the Old Testament and then God in the New Testament, or like even like sometimes in my life I'm like, it's God, God is the scary one, like the one that's gonna like bring all the judgment, but Jesus is the nice one. He's like, you know, but it's like it's the same person. It's like God in the Old Testament is the same God in the New Testament, and I think it's cool like being able to see that.
Yes. I think that's going to come out loud and clear, like the spoiler alert, but I think that's going to come out loud and clear as we continue on through Genesis, that idea of selfless love and covenant love. So I'm excited. Thank you. Thank you for being on this journey with us, and thank you ladies for journeying through this with us too. And I want to point out that we're so blessed to have a small group here, and there's many small groups in our church, and we know and recognize that for a variety of reasons that you aren't able to participate in a small group. So we invite you into our small group here and look forward to getting to know you over the semester. Maybe last thing, just to kind of refresh us and get us warmed up for jumping into Genesis 12, is inductive study and how to tackle. Like I did mention to women this morning, this is a pretty hefty book, and there's some pretty hefty passages of scripture in here too. Any thoughts on how, any words of encouragement that we might give one another, give those who are with us on how to tackle this bit?
I think for me, one of the things that I want to focus on as we're going through this book is just to like slow down and just to really just not worry about having some like grand, insightful new information, because there's no new information, but just to like spend more time meditating, and even like using that prayer box. In the book 1, I didn't really use it. And I know that's like a big thing for you, is like that prayer box. So I would like to maybe just like slow down and not try to find as much information. I probably still will, because I like that. But like, I think just like slowing down, I think is like the most important part. But
that's good. And that's what we do. That's the purpose of observation. That first step, observing, is to help us slow down and kind of think about it, be curious with the word, and ask questions. So I like that. Slow down. I had a professor in school, and I don't know how many times he said, slow down, slow down, slow down. And I can picture him and hear it in my head. So I like that reminder too. Thank you, Betsy.
I will share from a mom of young children's perspective,
Yes.
because I think that I would love, like when you say meditate and slow down, that all sounds so amazing. So that's why
Doesn't that sound nice?
It sounds so nice.
Why can't you do that?
But it's still very important to me to do this type of study because I've learned so much. So I have to find ways to do it in my world the way it is right now in this season of life. And so I think a lot of moms that have little ones get overwhelmed because it looks like a lot.
Right.
But I think that practically speaking, like spreading it out and not trying to sit down and overwhelm yourself. So still slow down, not trying to sit down and overwhelm yourself in one day. Like I got to do all this. And what I found really helpful to me is like I'll take Hudson to the play place, and while he's playing, I'll do all my observations because there doesn't have, I mean, it's not as,
right.
You don't have to put as much thought and prayer into that. And so I'll fill out every page of observations. And then throughout the days, when I have some quiet time, then I go through each day separately and try to do the interpreting and applying and praying so that it fills smaller pieces at a time. But the not mindless, you know what I mean? When I say mindless, about the observing, like it's easy to observe things in the midst of chaos.
Right.
So get all that done first, and then, take small moments of quiet to really seek and grow and learn.
I like that. Thank you. Yeah, I talked a little bit about this morning, and we won't repeat it all here because the teaching does get posted online too, so you can listen to that online teaching. But I did talk about how this particular part of Genesis, this is narrative, this is Bible stories, and they're true stories about real people, real places, and that kind of thing. And so each day really is like, this whole thing would be one long movie, right? And then each day is sort of one scene of the movie. And so I think a good way to tackle this as we go into it is to think about the scene itself. What's the plot? That would be how we would summarize it or find the main points. What's the plot? What's the point of tension within this day's scene? I think that's a little different than what we've talked about before. Like you wouldn't do that. Last year we were in Ephesians and Philippians. That we wouldn't look at any plot there, you know what I'm saying? So I think understanding what the plot is, and then if you are busy and you can only observe a little bit or only ask a couple questions, what does this say about who God is? And what does this say about a character that's in that scene for the day? I think if we take away those things, we're going to glean a good word for the day. You know what I mean? Yeah. Any idea or any thoughts about that?
No, it's so hard to do, I think, as women, because we just want all the details and all the words. We're too wordy sometimes. So really just give yourself a break if you have a bad week or you're overwhelmed. Because it's better to get something.
I said, keep it simple. I mean, that's kind of the name, Simply Bible, but keep it simple. We will not, there's some pretty good passages of scripture here. I want to be upfront about that. We will not glean every detail. We will not be able to look up every word in a Bible dictionary. I cannot do that, and it's just not practical. So what's the main point that God would have us to see, and ask him to open our hearts and eyes to see that. So I'm excited.
I am too.
Okay,
I'm excited.
Good. I think that's it. I think we will wrap up there, ladies. Next week, we will be discussing the very first week's lesson, Genesis chapter 12 through 13. So we look forward to unpacking it with you and looking forward to this semester. Would love to hear from you.